There are doors in life you know you're not supposed to open. I lived in peace for 5 years until one morning, when I decided to step into my late husband's old office. His scent was still there, his reading glasses, his coffee mug, and a small wooden box with a lock. I shouldn't have opened it. I knew that the moment I turned the key, but I opened it anyway. And from that moment on, my life and the past I'd buried for 37 years was never mine again. My name is Linda Carson. I'm 56 years old. I live in a small town in Northern California, where everyone knows your business before you do, and the biggest excitement is when Mrs. Henderson's roses bloom earlier than expected. Used to be a nurse at the county hospital. 23 years of blood tears and overtime shifts that left me bone-tired and hollow-eyed. Double shifts during flu season holding dying patients' hands when their families couldn't make it in time, watching too many good people slip away while the bastards kept on breathing. Now I grow tomatoes in neat little rows, write in my journal every morning with my first cup of coffee, feed my tabby cat Whiskers at 7 a.m. sharp every damn day, because she'll raise holy hell if I'm even 5 minutes late. Life's simple now, quiet, predictable. My husband Michael passed 5 years ago. Cancer ate him alive from the inside out, slow and cruel. We were married 32 years. Wasn't perfect, hell no. He left dirty dishes in the sink and never replaced the toilet paper roll. But he brought me daisies every Friday from the grocery store, and he rubbed my feet when I came home from those killer shifts at the hospital. It was my life. Our life. I thought I knew everything about that man. Every scar on his body, every bad habit, every stupid joke he told at dinner parties. Boy, was I wrong. Last Tuesday started like any other day. Fed Whiskers her fancy salmon pâté while she glared at me like I was her personal servant. Watered my tomatoes. Sat on the back porch with my coffee watching the morning fog roll off the hills. That's when my sister Carol called, full of her usual nagging energy. "Linda, honey, it's been 5 years. You can't keep Michael's office like some kind of shrine forever. Turn it into a guest room. Get yourself a nice daybed, maybe some cheerful curtains." I'd been putting off cleaning out his office since the day he died. Every time I walked past that closed door, my chest would tighten up like someone was squeezing my heart with their fist. But Carol was right, damn her. I couldn't keep living around a dead man's space forever. So after lunch, I finally worked up the nerve. Opened that door for the first time in 5 years. The room still smelled like him. Old Spice cologne and the musty scent of those hunting magazines he collected. His reading glasses were still folded on the desk next to a coffee mug with a ring stain on the bottom. I started slow, boxing up his old insurance files, trying not to think too hard about each piece of paper. Michael sold insurance for 30 years. Boring as watching paint dry, but it paid the bills and kept us comfortable. That's when I knocked over this stack of books on his desk. Field and Stream magazines, mostly some paperback westerns. They went tumbling everywhere like oversized dominoes, and that's when I saw it. A wooden box. Small thing maybe the size of a jewelry case, carved with these intricate little flowers that looked like daisies. The wood was dark, with age polished smooth by years of handling. Michael wasn't the sentimental type. Never kept keepsakes or fancy trinkets. His idea of decoration was a beer sign and a hunting calendar. So this box, it was weird as hell. I picked it up, surprised by how heavy it felt. Tried to open it. Locked tight with one of those old-fashioned brass locks. I spent 20 minutes tearing that office apart looking for the key. Checked every drawer, every pocket of every jacket hanging in his closet. Finally found it tucked behind our wedding photo on his desk. Real sneaky spot, like he was hiding it from someone. My hands were shaking when I turned that key. Don't know why. Maybe some part of me already knew I wouldn't like what I found. Inside that box was stuff that made my blood turn to ice water. A silver necklace with a heart-shaped pendant. The initials EM were engraved in fancy script, worn smooth like someone had rubbed them with their thumb 1,000 times. A small bone yellowed with age. Looked like it might be from a finger. A delicate finger. A woman's finger. And underneath everything, a newspaper clipping. Yellow and brittle, folded so many times the creases had worn through. Dated October 15th, 1986. Local girl missing. Emily Morgan, 18. Vanished Tuesday night after leaving her job at Murphy's Diner in Pine Ridge. Police seek information regarding her whereabouts. Morgan was last seen wearing jeans and a white sweater driving her blue Honda Civic. There was a photo with the article. Black and white grainy like they all were back then. But even through the poor print quality, I could see she was beautiful. Pretty blonde girl with bright eyes and a smile that looked like she'd never met a stranger. The kind of girl who lit up every room she walked into. I stared at that picture until my eyes watered, and something cold and terrible started crawling up my spine. That face, I knew that face. Emily Morgan. I dropped the clipping like it was on fire and sat down hard in Michael's old leather chair. The one that still held the shape of his body after all these years. Memories came flooding back like someone had opened a dam in my head. Memories I'd buried so deep I'd almost convinced myself they never happened. Pine Ridge, 1986. I was 19 years old, young and stupid, and full of dreams about getting out of that dead-end town. I worked at Murphy's Diner to save money for nursing school. Slinging hash and coffee to truckers and locals, pulling double shifts on weekends, smelling like grease and cigarette smoke no matter how much I showered. Emily was my co-worker. Started the same week, I did both of us green as grass and eager to please. But where I was all sharp elbows and nervous energy, Emily moved through that place like she was dancing. Never seemed to get rattled no matter how busy it got, or how rude the customers were. She became my best friend without me even realizing it was happening. We'd sit in the back booth after closing, splitting a piece of pie and talking about our plans. She wanted to be an elementary school teacher. Had it all mapped out. Community college first, then transfer to the state university. I want to teach second grade. She told me once, her eyes lighting up. That's when kids really start to read, when the whole world opens up for them. Emily was beautiful in that effortless way some girls are. Not makeup counter pretty, but naturally gorgeous. Wheat-colored hair that caught the light eyes blue as a summer sky, and this laugh that could fill up the whole diner. Every guy in Pine Ridge was crazy about her. They'd come into Murphy's just to sit in her section, leaving ridiculous tips and asking her out with all the confidence of boys who'd never been told no. But Emily wasn't interested in any of them. She was laser-focused on her future, on getting out of Pine Ridge and making something of herself, including Michael Brennan. He was 25, then older than the usual crowd that hung around the diner. Drove a red Chevy pickup that he kept spotless, wore tight Wrangler jeans, and had this cocky smile that made my stomach flip every time he looked my way. Michael came into Murphy's every Tuesday and Thursday like clockwork. Always sat in Emily's section, always ordered the same thing. Meatloaf special with extra gravy black coffee and a slice of apple pie. But Emily wouldn't give him the time of day. He makes my skin crawl. She told me one night while we were closing up. Always asking personal questions. Where I live, what time I get off work, whether I have a boyfriend. And the way he looks at me? She shuddered. Like I'm something he wants to own. That's when Michael started paying attention to me instead. I'd been half in love with him since the first time he walked through those doors. Had been watching him from across the diner, daydreaming about what it would be like if he noticed me. So when he finally did, when he started sitting in my section and flashing that $1 million smile my way, I felt like I'd won the lottery. We started dating in August. Michael was charming as hell when he wanted to be. Took me to the drive-in movies, brought me wildflowers he'd picked on the side of the road, told me I was the prettiest girl in 3 counties. Emily was happy for me. Said maybe now Michael would stop bothering her, following her around town like a lovesick puppy. Just be careful, she warned me. There's something about him that doesn't sit right with me. But I was 19 and stupid and so desperate to be loved that I ignored every red flag. Everything seemed fine until October. That's when the weird stuff started happening to Emily. Phone calls in the middle of the night, heavy breathing on the other end of the line. Someone following her home from work, staying just far enough back that she couldn't get a good look at them. Her car getting keyed in the diner parking lot, crude words scratched into the paint. She was scared, really scared. Started carrying pepper spray and asking me to walk her to her car after our shifts. I think it's your boyfriend, she told me one night. We were wiping down tables getting ready to close. The diner was empty except for us, and old Pete washing dishes in the back. "Don't be crazy," I said, but my voice sounded hollow even to me. "Michael's with me every night. He wouldn't hurt a fly." But even as I said it, I knew something was off. Michael had been acting strange lately. Moody and possessive, asking too many questions about Emily. Where she lived exactly. What her schedule was. Whether she was seeing anybody on the side. "Why do you care so much about Emily?" I'd asked him once. "Just making conversation," he'd said, but his eyes went hard for just a second. Cold as winter stones. The night Emily disappeared. October 14th, 1986 started out normal enough. We worked the dinner shift together, laughing about some customer who'd tried to send back perfectly good meatloaf. Emily seemed relaxed for the first time in weeks. Said maybe whoever had been bothering her had finally gotten bored and moved on. She left the diner around 9:30, waving goodbye and calling out that she'd see me tomorrow. That was the last time anyone saw Emily Morgan alive. Michael showed up at my apartment around 10 o'clock. I was surprised to see him because we didn't have plans, but I was always happy when he came by unannounced. Except this time was different. His shirt was torn at the shoulder. There was blood on his knuckles, dried and dark. His hair was messed up like he'd been running his hands through it, and his eyes had this wild look I'd never seen before. "Jesus, Michael, what happened to you?" "Got in a fight," he said, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. Some drunk asshole at Hank's bar was running his mouth. I led him to the bathroom, cleaned the blood off his hands with peroxide and cotton balls. The cuts weren't deep, just scraped knuckles like he'd hit something hard. Or someone. "You should put some ice on this," I said, but he pulled his hands away. "It's fine, just give me a clean shirt, would you?" I gave him one of my oversized flannels. He was shaking so bad he could barely get his arms through the sleeves. We sat at my little kitchen table and I made him coffee, trying to pretend everything was normal. But Michael kept staring out the window like he expected someone to come banging on the door. "Linda," he said finally, his voice so quiet I had to lean forward to hear him. "If anyone asks where I was tonight, you'll tell them I was here with you, right? All evening." My stomach dropped. "Why would anyone ask?" He reached across the table and grabbed my hand. His fingers were ice cold. "Just promise me, please." The way he said it so desperate and pleading scared me more than the blood on his knuckles or the wild look in his eyes. "Of course," I heard myself say. "I promise." He kissed me then. Long and desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of my mouth. The next morning, Emily's roommate called the police. Emily never came home. Her car was found on the side of Highway 101 about 5 miles out of town, keys still in the ignition. Purse missing. No sign of struggle. The whole town went crazy. Search parties combed the woods. Volunteers put up missing person flyers on every telephone pole and storefront window. Emily's parents offered a reward $10,000 for any information leading to their daughter's safe return. The cops questioned everyone who knew her. Her co-workers at the diner, her friends from high school, the guys who'd been asking her out, including Michael. I was working a lunch shift when Detective Morrison came into Murphy's. Serious-looking man with gray hair and tired eyes. He sat in my section and ordered coffee, then started asking questions. "Your boyfriend, Michael Brennan, where was he Tuesday night between 8 and midnight?" My mouth went dry. I could feel Emily's absence like a hole in the world, could see her empty section across the diner, where she should have been taking orders and making people smile. "He was with me," I said. The lie came out smooth as butter. "We were at my place all evening." "You're sure about that?" "Positive. We watched TV and went to bed around 11. Detective Morrison wrote something in his little notebook, then looked up at me with those tired eyes. Did Emily ever mention feeling threatened by anyone? Someone following her, making unwanted advances? I thought about all those nights Emily had asked me to walk her to her car. About the fear in her voice when she talked about her mysterious stalker. "No," I said. "Nothing like that." Another lie, easier than the first one. Detective Morrison nodded and closed his notebook. "If you think of anything else, give us a call." After he left, I locked myself in the diner's bathroom and threw up until my stomach was empty. The police crossed Michael off their suspect list real quick after that. Why would they keep investigating a guy whose girlfriend vouched for his whereabouts? A month later, he asked me to marry him. We were sitting in his truck outside the diner after my shift. He pulled out this little velvet box and opened it to reveal a diamond ring that must have cost more than I made in 6 months. Where did you get the money for this? I asked, because I knew what Michael made at his job, and it wasn't enough for a ring like that. Been saving up, he said. Had it stashed away for a rainy day. Will you marry me, Linda? I should have asked more questions. Should have wondered where a guy who lived paycheck to paycheck suddenly got enough money for an engagement ring and a down payment on a house. But I was 19 and in love and scared of losing the only good thing I thought I had. Yes, I said. We got married 3 months later and moved up here to Northern California. Michael got a job selling insurance. I went to nursing school. We bought a little house with a big backyard and planted that willow tree our first spring. I buried what happened in Pine Ridge so deep I almost forgot it myself. Almost convinced myself that Emily had just run off like the police said. That she was living somewhere far away teaching second graders and living the life she'd always wanted. But sitting there in Michael's office 37 years later, holding that newspaper clipping and Emily's necklace, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. Michael killed Emily Morgan, and I helped him get away with it. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the clipping. I felt sick, dizzy, like the room was spinning around me. How many nights had I lain next to a murderer? How many times had I kissed those hands that had killed my best friend? I stumbled to the kitchen and poured myself 3 fingers of Michael's bourbon. The good stuff he saved for special occasions. Downed it in one gulp and felt it burn all the way down. Then I walked out to the backyard. That willow tree was huge now, its branches drooping almost to the ground. Michael used to sit under it every evening with his bourbon just watching the sunset. My thinking spot, he used to call it. Helps me clear my head. What had he been thinking about all those years? Was he remembering Emily reliving what he'd done to her? The ground under that tree was different from the rest of the yard. Softer, more fertile. My tomatoes grew better in that spot than anywhere else. I went to the garage and grabbed Michael's old shovel. The same one he'd used to plant that tree 32 years ago. Started digging. The earth gave way easily like it had been turned before. About 4 feet down, I hit something hard. A metal box this time. Bigger than the wooden one, heavy enough that I could barely lift it out of the hole. Inside were things that made me understand I'd been living with a monster. More jewelry. Earrings, bracelets, rings. A driver's license for someone named Maria Santos, dated 1989. A college ID for Jennifer Walsh from 1993. Photos of girls I didn't recognize, all young and pretty and smiling like they had their whole lives ahead of them. And newspaper clippings, lots of them. Sacramento woman missing after night out. College student vanishes from campus. Search continues for local waitress. Mother of 2 disappears without trace. All different towns, all different years. All after we moved to California. I counted them with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. 7 girls total, including Emily. 7 daughters who never came home. 7 families who spent holidays setting extra places at the table just in case. And I'd been cooking Michael's dinner and doing his laundry while he hunted them. The worst part I think I always knew. Those business trips that didn't add up. The way he'd come home sometimes with scratches on his hands and dirt under his fingernails. The extra money that would appear in our account every few months, always with some bullshit explanation about a big commission or a bonus. I told myself he was having affairs. That was easier to swallow than the truth. But deep down in the part of my heart, I never let see daylight. I knew my husband was something terrible, and I chose to look the other way because I was selfish and weak and too goddamn scared to face the truth. I sat there in that hole I dug surrounded by the evidence of 7 murders, and I started laughing. Laughing until tears ran down my face and my chest hurt from the effort, because I'd spent 32 years thinking I was lucky. Thinking I'd found a good man who loved me, who brought me flowers and rubbed my feet after long shifts. But Michael didn't love me. He kept me around because I was useful. Because I'd already proven I'd lie for him. Because having a sweet nurse wife was the perfect cover for a serial killer. The respectable widow who volunteered at the clinic and grew prize-winning tomatoes. Who would ever suspect someone like me? I climbed out of that hole and looked around my backyard. My beautiful backyard with its neat flower beds and vegetable garden, and that pretty willow tree where I'd spent so many peaceful evenings. How many girls were buried under my roses? How many times had I watered my garden with the tears of mothers who would never see their daughters again? The smart thing would be to call the police. Turn everything over. Tell them the whole truth about Pine Ridge and what I'd found in my backyard. 7 families deserved answers. Deserved to know what happened to their girls, to finally have somewhere to lay flowers and say goodbye. I actually picked up my phone, dialed 911 and let it ring once before hanging up, because calling the police would mean admitting what I'd done, what I'd helped Michael do. It would mean facing the families of those 7 girls and seeing the hate in their eyes when they learned I could have stopped him 37 years ago. It would mean prison, disgrace, having everyone in town know that sweet Linda Carson was really a monster who let her best friend's killer go free. I couldn't do it, so I put everything back in that metal box and buried it deeper than before. Filled in the hole and smoothed over the dirt, like it had never been disturbed. Then I went inside and started a fire in the fireplace. Fed those newspaper clippings to the flames one by one, watching 37 years of evidence turn to ash and smoke. I kept the jewelry, though. Don't ask me why. Maybe I felt like I owed those girls something. Maybe I wanted to remember their faces every time I opened Michael's wooden box. Or maybe I'm just as sick as he was. The next morning, I called Peterson Landscaping. I want to put in a deck. I told them. Right where that willow tree is. Can you remove the tree and pour concrete over the whole area? That's a beautiful old tree, Mrs. Carson. You sure you want to get rid of it? I'm sure. How soon can you start? We could have a crew out there Monday morning. Perfect. They came that Monday with chainsaws and a concrete truck. Cut down that willow tree and ground up the stump, then poured a nice thick slab of concrete over the whole area. Now I've got a beautiful patio where Michael's thinking spot used to be. Put some outdoor furniture on it, hung up string lights. Looks real pretty in the evening light. Nobody will ever find those girls now. I sit out there sometimes drinking Michael's bourbon and watching the sunset. Whiskers curls up in my lap and purrs while I scratch behind her ears. People in town think I'm this sweet old widow lady, the retired nurse who volunteers at the clinic twice a week and grows the best tomatoes in 3 counties. They bring me casseroles when I'm sick and shovel my driveway when it snows. They have no idea what I really am. I'm not a victim, never was. I'm an accomplice, an accessory to murder. A woman who chose her own comfort over justice for 7 innocent girls. I helped a serial killer escape consequences for 32 years. And when I finally had the chance to make it right, to give those families the closure they deserved, I chose to protect myself instead. 7 girls died because I was too selfish to tell the truth. 7 families will never know what happened to their daughters because I was too much of a coward to face what I'd done. Sometimes late at night when the bourbon isn't working and sleep won't come, I think about those mothers. Wonder if they're still alive, still hoping, still checking their phones every time it rings in case it's news about their missing girls. And I pour myself another drink and try not to think about it too hard. Because some secrets are worth keeping even if they rot you from the inside out. Just like that cancer rotted Michael. Funny how things work out. I finish my drink and head inside. Tomorrow I'll water my tomatoes, check on my flowers, feed Whiskers at 7 a.m. sharp. Life goes on, and some secrets stay buried forever, even if they should have seen the light of day 37 years ago.